Good morning, everyone. Hello, hi. Look at all these people.
Hey, everybody.
Happy morning. What is it, Monday?
Good
Monday
morning.
morning?
Monday morning.
It is Monday and later
Yes.
in the morning where they are.
Right. And I made, so you know the movie There Will Be Blood? Okay, so this is all about There Will Be Cats. Just
Yeah.
FYI, they're going to be there.
Thank you for your patience in advance.
Yes.
They tend not to behave as much as we would like.
Yes.
But there they are.
Yes, they're two of them are very old. The ones without, for these two are super old, like 18 and 15. So they do what they want. And this one is like, she's from the courtyard, so she's a little bit of a hundslet from out in the, she's like a rescue. So she also does what she wants. So there you go. They all do what they want.
That concludes our cat behavior for the day. Thank you
Yes,
for
there we
joining
go.
us.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah. I think I can get started by doing some introduction. Yeah. Hi. Hello, I'm Chi Jung. Thank you for joining us this morning for Voices of XR with Ferryman Collective. This series is made possible by Katie McMurray-Murray and the National Science Foundation as part of the interdisciplinary graduate training in science, technology, and applications of augmented and virtual reality at the University of Rochester. I would like to thank the Ferryman Collective for joining us today. The Ferryman Collective is a group of creative and technical professionals dedicated to bringing live, immersive narratives to life and virtual reality. They are a new kind of virtual reality studio focused on exploring what storytelling, interaction, immersion, and entertainment can be for a new generation of media. With a passionate team of multidisciplinary talents, Ferryman Collective aims to take you on an unprecedented journeys into fantastic worlds and stories previously thought to be the stuff of dreams. We have 3 of their team members who are all based in Los Angeles with us today. Deirdre Lyons is a producer and performer with participation in over 75 film and theatrical productions throughout the West Coast. She is a co-founder of Ferryman Collective and produces, performs, and directs their productions. Steven Bushko produces and performs in independent film and theatrical productions. He is a co-founder of Ferryman Collective and produces and performs in their productions. Witten Frank is a voice, film, television, and theater actor. She is a company member, producer, and performer with Ferryman Collective. Please feel free to post your question in the chat. We'll have a Q&A at the end. Lastly, this session is being recorded and will be available to you later on the Studio X website. With that, I will turn it over to Ferryman Collective.
Hi.
Thanks for the introduction.
Thank you. Yes.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having us, everybody.
As she said, I'm Deirdre. This is my husband, Steve. And then Witten, who we all live in Los Angeles and are good friends along with coworkers as well. And we're so happy to be here. Thanks to Megan and Kate and everybody else who reached out to us to bring us here. We're really excited to be here and talking to you all about live theater and VR. So feel free to ask questions, to interrupt and say, hey, wait, could you explain that more? I mean, I'd love for this to be a dialogue, but I also understand that it can be kind of weird. So if you don't have anything to say or any questions to ask, because this stuff is so new, a lot of people are like, what is it? You please just tell me what it is.
We will just plod along.
That's right.
We don't have all day as well. So, we're going to be giving you a lot of stuff to think about and hopefully to inspire you. But we also always get excited and inspired by the people that we chat with. So this should be kind of fun.
So yeah, I mean, it's only been like 2.5 years since we started doing all this. We went from like people who were just plodding away in LA doing our thing to, playing at some of the major festivals in the world, places like the Venice Film Festival, Tribeca Film Festival, Kaohsiung. We've been all like our stuff is shown all around the world, and this happened in such a short amount of time because we only started in September of 2020. So that kind of is crazy to go from like 0 to 100 in 2 years. So we sometimes think like, maybe it's just, showing up, being present. And other times I think it has a lot to do with timing and luck.
For sure. The 3 of us have spent our careers growing as actors and producers and stuff on stage and in front of the camera and behind the camera. And it can be difficult
Yeah.
And within the last 2 years, our creative lives have been like a bowstring pulled back and the arrow suddenly released. And we've been super grateful to be helping to pioneer this new genre of storytelling in the virtual world.
Yeah, and I mean, nobody ever grew up and said, hey, I want to be a VR producer when I grow up.
There was none.
There was that didn't happen.
But I think on that note, as much as it's luck and timing, it's also seeing an opportunity or something that is interesting that's capturing the imagination of the people around you. Because we certainly saw that during the pandemic, but no one knew what was going to happen after that. And we've pushed forward and seen that actually the rest of the world is also, catching the VR bug, as it were, and pushing forward. And so in that way, and in a way that we always try, we're sort of ahead of the curve there, where we saw it starting to happen and then made that jump fully into it post-pandemic.
So Whitten, why don't you tell us a little bit about like your journey here and how you got to be like on this picture for South by Southwest as director?
I mean, honestly, weirdly, and I don't think I could have predicted it, but it was kind of a natural progression, right? Because when I attended Carnegie Mellon for my undergrad, I ended up doing a new program that they were doing, which was a combination of the humanities and the fine arts, which really just meant I had to do all the work for 2 degrees and I only got 1. But I feel like all of my life I've been not afraid, but reticent to be put into one particular box, even as a performer. They tell you when you move to Hollywood, you've got to figure out your niche or your thing, right? Are you the funny best friend? Are you the person who plays all of the villains? What is your niche? And then that's where casting can sort of shoehorn you in. But what VR allows us to do is really utilize all of our skills as performers in many different ways, as voice actors, as on-stage performers, as theater performers. I'm getting to use skills that I never thought I would use, that we learned in our theater programs, like puppetry and mime, simply because we are pushing the boundaries of performance in this new medium. And so, like I said, it makes sense, because my whole career has been about gathering different types of skills and trying to figure out how I can use them as a creative person. And when I was cast in The Underpresents by Tender Claws, which is where I met Deirdre, that got brought to the forefront, where suddenly I realized, oh, you mean I get to use these and I get to use this? And I can play around with all these new sets of skills, learning how to work in a digital world. That's incredible. And so, yeah, like I said, weirdly, it makes sense, though I never could have predicted it. What about you guys?
Well, but we started off doing like a bunch of stuff. We did short films, we did webisodes, we produced all of these crazy things. Very expensive, I'll have you know. They're all very
Time-consuming, expensive, frustrating
Yeah, so we were
at times.
planting a lot of seeds along the way. We did a lot of immersive theater since 2016.
Very similarly to Whitten, unless you're born into these sort of entertainment families and it's sort of just pushed into it naturally, a lot of us have to create opportunities to perform. And along to Whitten's point, along with that, we acquire skills, which we found out can be useful with the work that we're doing today. Deirdre and Whitten started in The Underpresents. We'll get to that later, but we started
that there.
Yeah, we started working in immersive theater, and that's live theater where there is no proscenium stage, where the audience is part of the show and helps drive the narrative. And the theater and the set are where you happen to be. So we all started playing within that realm, unknowing that it was going to come to benefit us today.
Yeah, and then that's
and where it all started digitally with these guys.
These guys are amazing. They pioneered some incredible theater in virtual reality. Actually, all three of us were cast in this, but he couldn't do it because of scheduling issues. But I got to do it, and thank gosh I did it, because the pandemic closed everything down in 2020. This was like, I got cast in November of 2019. Whitten was, cast prior to that in the original round of casting. And then I was like, I saw it and I was like, hey, all my friends are doing that. Can I do this too? And that's how I got the audition. Then it happened. So all of this was kind of a bit of a perfect storm, right? So pandemic happened, the Oculus Quest had just come out, it was affordable relatively, and then Facebook said Meta, and everybody's like, oh my God. And so this sort of just catapulted VR into sort of more of the mainstream that it had been in at that point previously. We were talking earlier about timing and everything. So this is a short film that Steve and I shot and produced and acted and did all of the things that they say you need to do in LA, which is create your own content. And we were doing that with this, and we shot this on the Canon XL1. So brand new
Canon XL1.
Yes.
We now were not beholden to film anymore. The issue with the Canon XL1, it was really cool, but it was so new. And up to that point, there was only 2 movies that were getting some attention. One was Dancer in the Dark, which was a feature film starring Bjork. And the other one was Chuck and Buck. And those 2, they got a lot of attention. There was some other things being shot on them because we are poor American artists. We didn't have money, but we did have access to an XL1, so we shot this thing on an XL1. Point being, it was difficult for film festivals to program because it was so new. We still were required to present a 35 millimeter or a 16 millimeter print, which we didn't have the money to procure, so it was more difficult. It ended up going around the world, but it was tougher. So we were a little too ahead of the curve on that one.
Right. So that brings us back to timing and luck. So, I love this article that I found, and it talks about how the most talented individuals are rarely the most successful, right? Because you need some luck to get you sort of where you need to go. Not that you don't need the talent to sort of, take advantage of the luck
and keep it going.
But luck is very important, and it's it will, so if you're feeling like I'm really talented, but I'm just, what's happening, it's, you need a little luck. That's what's happening, right? You need a little time with what we're doing now. We're actually on the right side of the hill. The Ken XL1 said we're like going up the hill. With the VR, we're coming down the hill. So we're going on the right side of the hill. So that's good.
Yeah, we managed to line it up ideally this time.
So, this of course is an example of luck, getting cast in the Under Presents, that leading into the Tempest during the pandemic, right? And then going to the Rain Dance immersive awards ceremony virtually, because it's all virtual with Rain Dance. Tempest actually winning the award that year, and me meeting Liz Rosenthal, who is the curator of the Venice Film Festival, at this event and chatting with her and getting to know her. So that everything just sort of lined up in a beautiful way. And of course, we're super grateful.
And just a point about the Under Presents and Tempest and all of that, where we found ourselves starting to produce was directly in the center of kind of where movies, theater, and gaming intersect. It's a strange new genre where we are encroaching into the world of gaming, but not.
But let's get into the metaverse.
Yes.
Whitten, tell us what the metaverse is about.
I mean, I think everyone probably has their own idea of
Finally,
what the metaverse is, right? Everyone in this virtual room probably is like, oh, well, I think it's this, or maybe it's that. We don't really know. It's become one of those words that people just throw around in application to pretty much anything. Our Zoom conversations, the metaverse, we don't know, right? And at the same time, so at the moment, it's kind of the hot new buzzword, right? It's the word that everyone's like, ooh, I know what this means. And really, they have no idea. In our world, that's very similar to the word immersive. People just kind of use it willy-nilly to describe a variety of things. But, I mean, okay, so the term metaverse, as some people know, it was first used in Neil Stephenson's novel Snow Crash. right? Where the metaverse is this place that people can go, that's online. And in that world, of course, they use it to escape a totalitarian government. You have a similar thing happening in Ready Player One, right? But in both of those worlds, it's kind of this one unified place, right? Where everyone goes. And today, that's not really true. So I think a better way to think about sort of metaverse, there's the one where it covers everything that is digital or external realities, right? Everything that's AR, everything that's VR, even 360 film. It's anything that's not our typical day-to-day entertainment. But I think then because of that, a better way to look at the term metaverse is more as a bunch of verses, a bunch of metaverses, right? Each one with its own rules, its own aesthetics, and its own platform. Because really, that's what it is. Each platform is its own verse. Each app is its own verse, even within that. So the universe that we work in, VR chat, has its own rules and ways of being, and that's one metaverse. And then you have Neos, which is its own metaverse over here. And I think that's probably a better way of looking at it rather than one unified metaverse as a bunch of tiny universes within the umbrella term of external reality.
Thanks, Whitney. I think that feels like exactly what it is.
And of course, as technology gets better, everything exponentially builds quicker and quicker. So we're in an evolutionary process, and that may very well change.
So
I mean, like even as more headsets get added, right? Apple's working on one, Sony's working on one. All of that
It's
is
going to change everything.
And but in sort of reading what's going on and also talking with people in the industry, there doesn't seem to be this idea that it will all come together. There seems to actually be that, like a lot of this stuff, because everyone has access to so much more technology, people will find their thing and they'll go with that, right? Just like there's some people who prefer Netflix and some people who prefer Amazon Prime or Hulu. It's going to be more akin to that, at least at the start. No, sorry.
No. I'm going to just pivot us now to our first show. Well, the first show that really got us on the map. So we did Para and Krampusnacht, and those were great. And then we did Welcome to Respite, and that was the first show that we sort of took to festivals. I'm going to play a little video that's going to talk about the challenges and affordances. And then this is actually Welcome to Respite was actually an in real life production that was adapted into virtual reality. And I'm going to play this.
Welcome to Respite.
All right, and I'm going to stop it because I know how VR is, and I'm just going to can somebody give me a thumbs up if you can hear that? Could you hear that? All right, we're off.
Very good.
It is a virtual reality adaptation of Quack Productions' award-winning immersive theater show, The Severance Theme, Welcome to Respite, that took place in August of 2019 in Silver Lake, California. Live theater is ultimately a social experience. Our audiences gather in our unconventional lobby space, and they are greeted by an adorable little teddy bear played by an actor who entertains the audience as they gather, as well as shifting them into the right mindset to experience the show. As the IRL play was built for one audience per show, we were able to add 9 audience members to the VR version. Our premium ticket holder plays our hero Alex, who's an adult taken back to a forgotten childhood memory, to the day when they first started having symptoms of dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality syndrome. And the other 9 participants play the alternate parts of Alex's personality. During the show, Alex interacts with their parents during a family dance party, helps with the cooking, and experiences the world through the eyes of childhood wonder. Our alters are on their own track, watching Alex's interaction with their parents, seeing glowing orbs that inform them of memories Alex has forgotten, and even moments of interaction where they get to try and help Alex to protect them from the shadow. At the end of the show, they once again gather together in our credits world, which doubles as a lobby foyer and a place to talk about their experience after they've seen. We use the social VR platform VR Chat to host our show on, and we created a hierarchy which gives a tiered system of permissions to different people within the world. Our actors have all the permissions and see everything. Alex has permission to pick up certain items, but not see the glowing memory orbs placed around the house. Yet our alters can see the orbs as well as interact with items that show up only for them. Bringing an in-real world theater piece into virtual reality gives us some exciting affordances. For example, we can take them to the attic and turn on the starlight projector so that it lights up the room as it did in the real-life version. But in VR, we can take it a step further and allow those walls to fall away, leaving Alex floating in space with their dad, sharing a personal moment of connection. Then when Mom calls up from downstairs, Michael, Alex, what's still in the attic? The walls snap back into place and they are once again in the attic. While it is a scripted show, the actors playing the parents react in real time to Alex. What Alex says, how they answer a question, and what they are doing in the world. And no show is the same as every Alex is different. And it is that which makes every showing of Welcome to Respite unique and special.
So that was a video that we created for the PGA. And it gives you sort of an overview of the entire show there. So yeah, this is Welcome to Respite. It wasn't in real life. We brought it into VR. It was, I actually was the voice in the shadow in the in real life production. That's how I knew about it. And then this was supposed to be the first chapter in a series. It was about dissociative identity disorder, not syndrome. Sorry, we fixed that in a different video. I thought that was this one, but it was not. The original one. So there's the two posters for the in real life and the VR version. And then the in real life one was, of course, an award-winning show. And we were able to take our audience in the real life shows and in the VR shows and turn them into Alex.
What we discovered being operating within the in real life immersive world was that the same basics apply in real life and in the 360-degree digital world. So there were a bunch of us in the company that have had this experience, and we discovered that it was easy to adapt that type of play into VR and use those same principles, which is one of the reasons why I think that we're fairly successful at using audiences.
But also that show was only for one person, right, in the real world. And
Correct.
With VR, we're able to bring in the invisible audience members as alters as well. So you still have that intimate experience for the one person, but because we can literally make people invisible in virtual reality, we're able to bring in more audience members. Steve, you touched on something though, just there that I know we have so much to talk about, but I think it's useful for people to realize that like we are able to give audience members the same type of intimate performance, right? And both Deirdre and I in the under had experiences where people would give us hugs, and that was actually, it became a very important part of the under. People would give us hugs, and you may think that's kind of odd because of course you can't feel anyone, they can't feel anyone, you're just standing.
Haptics are coming, but they're not here yet.
Right, you're standing in your room doing this. Right? And yet, somehow people would still get the same type of feeling from that. And that certainly carried over. And we actually have an explicit point where Mom hugs Alex in Welcome to Respite, which I know was a result of that, because we knew how effective that was to offer a hug, because it's such a natural, physical, human gesture. And it's one of the things that I think helps people sort of put down their guard a little bit in this virtual space. But it's also surprising how effective an intrinsically emotional gesture can be, regardless of if it's in real life or in the digital space.
So our audience played Alex in the show, and the actors were played by, the parents were played by actors. So here's our in real life version and our VR version, of which we had some teams of actors that played the parents. And then we were actually just finishing up with Krampusnacht, and we'd had some success with that, right? So we'd gotten nominated for the PGA Innovation Award, and we're like, oh, we're on the right track. So we're like, let's keep going. And then so we approached Lindsay and said, hey, Lindsay, what do you think about bringing your show into VR? And she didn't even have a headset. And she's like, well, it's a pandemic, so
Nobody's doing anything.
nobody's doing anything.
And the rest of the team, there was some convincing as well. All of this is been an experiment, really, that we were all up for.
And luckily she said yes, and then we were off to the races. But
Off to the races.
we do our shows in VR chat, and it's like, well, why VR chat? Well, there's a couple of reasons for VR chat. There's a lot of platforms that are out there, but VR chat offers something unique in that the avatar system is really great, and you can create almost any avatar that you want, as long as it adheres to certain rules, particularly rules for Quest, because we wanted our shows to be Quest friendly.
It's a Unity-based platform. So with their SDK, they use Udon noodles. And with that, I'm seeing, we come from this as producers and actors, we're not technicians.
No,
But
no.
from what I understand, with the people that are smart and know stuff like this, this allows them to use built-in Unity and Blender and then upload this to the platform. And we need legs.
Yes.
Honestly.
It's also fairly financially friendly too, right? There's a lot of free assets. It's relatively inexpensive to get more, and even building the world is open to all, which is nice at this point.
Exactly. Affordable for us. But we are
Yes.
squatting on somebody else's territory, so it can be dangerous as well.
So Whitney, you're going to go to the theater. What do you do?
Well, the first thing I do is buy a ticket. Right?
And then, yes.
And then I wait for the magical day when I get to see my film. I arrive at the theater at my appointed time, or maybe 15 minutes before, get a snack in the lobby or something, glass of champagne.
And you go there.
Then I attend the theater. And Deirdre, how similar is that to our experience?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's almost like we have to teach them how to drive the car to get to the theater.
It's a little trickier.
It's
Well,
a
they
little-
do buy a ticket first. That part's
Yes.
the same.
Yes.
And they have an appointed day and time.
Yes. Yes. But to the getting there is always like, the challenge. And as producers, it's our responsibility to teach people, how to onboard and how to get to the theater, how to do these
Well,
things. And yes.
Because of course, they are not just audience members in our shows, right? So it would be
Right.
like if you arrived at the theater and then you had to get a costume on because you were actually going to be part of the show. And so in that way, for us, they have to put the headset on, and then we have to help them figure out how to use the headset.
Yep, and how to, they have to make an account. They have to, they have to get us the, friend our accounts so that they can get there, because that's the VR chat system. And so we send out like emails, and we have videos, and then we have Zoom that they can come on to like at the last minute and say, hey, I'm having this issue or that issue. One issue is a lot that comes up is updates. Like if you go into VR chat and it says update, always update. Always just do it, because otherwise you're going to get into the space and there's going to be nobody there, and you'll be like, where is everybody? Because you didn't update. Or one of the issues we've been running into lately is the mics haven't been working. So usually it's a very simple thing. You just restart the headset, right? But it's a new bug that's shown up recently.
So yeah, VR chat, they push out these updates and they don't let us know, and one thing affects everything else, and it's like the butterfly effect and everything changes. But it's because of those types of things where we discovered that along with producing the show, there's this evolutionary process that we've developed of onboarding, because it's important for us, because the audience participates so deeply in the story and the narrative, that it's important for us to put people in the same headspace of the story that we're about, the journey that we're going to take them on. So we've tried to make these things as streamlined, as simple as possible, because it can be frustrating, especially for the first time to get to us. And we want to alleviate some of that frustration as quickly as possible and get people in the same headspace so that we can take them on this journey and then offboard them as well.
So somebody was asking about, not just the move to the virtual space, but the move towards being part of the show rather than just a passive audience member, and how audiences tend to react to that kind of experience. It can be anything, right?
We get all the reactions.
Yeah, we do get all the reactions. We get people who are really shy and quiet, and we are able to just continue the show even if that's the case. I think Whitten, you did a show just yesterday, and your audience member was quiet and was
at first, but she, I mean, this goes into sort of later stuff that we want to talk about, but because we come from the world of immersive theater and theater in general, creating intimacy and creating safe spaces for our audience is something that I think our team does particularly well. I was actually just typing a reply to this.
Oh, were you? Sorry. Thank you for that.
But no, I was going to say pretty much the same thing, which is it really runs the gambit. But I think one good predictor is whether or not the audience has any experience in immersive theater. And that most often happens, people from the coasts or things like that, where they've seen immersive theater and they understand, they have at least an idea of how to participate in a thing. Although sometimes people want to participate too much, and that is equally problematic, because they really want to be not only the stars, but almost they want to direct the show.
We get the full spectrum.
We do.
Right. And then you have people that don't talk at all. We also perform for people who speak different languages, which creates its own challenge. So it really depends. Some people want to be a part of the show. Some people would rather sit back and relax. And in Welcome to Respite, they can choose, right? They can buy the hero ticket, or they can buy the altar ticket. And we've even started doing streaming shows. So with that, the audience can actually just be outside watching in a much more traditional sort of viewing experience. So yeah, I think we try and offer them the opportunity to participate as much as they feel comfortable with. Although I will say with Gumball Dreams, our next show, and I know we're going to talk about that, but just briefly, there is a bit more of a push to give the audience space to participate in a more direct way and interact with the audience in a one-on-one, in a personal way.
Yeah. So our actors are really quite skilled at dealing with, anywhere on the spectrum, from somebody who's really shy and quiet all the way to like somebody who's boisterous.
And that's how that's how we produce and write the shows. They are scripted in narrative, and there is an arc, but there's a fair amount of air in the middle there for interaction with the audience and improvisation. So if we get more vocal folks that want to participate, we can go off the canvas with them. If there are more introverted people that we're performing with audience members, then that's okay too, because the story will go on based on what we're getting. And we know for those that are a little bit more excited, we know when to bring it back and keep the story moving on.
Yeah, but VR theater, it is, as I said, incumbent upon the producers to help the audience not be afraid of the tech, and to teach them what they need to know about the experience and how to get to it, and how best to see the show, what their menu settings should be. And a lot of people think, oh, it's like Zoom, I'll just pop on right at the time that it's supposed to be there. And they come to find out, oh no, it's a lot more like signing up for an app. You have to open an account and you have to fill out all the things before you can even. So it is a bit of a challenge. Now we use in our shows, we use a Quest, and that limits us to the amount of data that people can see, the processing power, because it's basically a phone and a headset, instead of like PCVR, where you take your headset and you connect it to your computer and the graphics card and the computer is running all the graphics. this limits our graphic ability. And when we first started with Welcome to Respite, it was only 50 megabytes.
VR chat only allowed us to build our worlds to 50 megabytes. So we had, you really, the dev team that we work with has really learned how to optimize amazingly and get so much animations and this huge world into such a small space. Quickly after Welcome to Respite premiered, we went through the festival circuit, and then right about the end of the year, VR chat allowed us to build to 100 megabytes because that's what the Quest 2 could handle.
Yeah.
But it is surprising how much you can do with that. I think people, especially today when we have, 2 terabyte hard drives, would be surprised with what you can do with 100 megabytes.
Yes. And when you've got to conserve your space, so you get clever about it, right? So here's the addict in the fort, the Alex's addict fort in the addict. So we took this fort in the addict and we scaled it up, made it really big, and then it became the lobby space. Thank you for complimenting our lobby space earlier. I appreciate that.
Well, and why is that? Because reusing assets doesn't count against you as new.
Yes, it's a magic trick.
It's a magic trick.
You can copy one of those crayons 8,000 times and it's not going to rob you of your well-needed megabytes.
And then, you just make that the way it is, and now all of a sudden the audience, when they come in, they're greeted by these little toys and everybody's little toy, and it's also very fabulous, and we get them in the mindset after they've already been like stressed out about getting into VR. So we just put them at ease, and these are the same actors, of course, that play mom and dad, so we're reusing our actors.
So since it deals with the hero of this story is a 7-year-old kid, and it deals with childhood trauma and issues about stuff like that, we want to put our audience in the get them start to feel and think about their childhoods when they were that age, and that the environments that people moved around throughout. So that's how we came to create the lobby space for Welcome to Respite.
Now, as we mentioned, the show is for one actor or one audience member in real life. So one audience member, and then you've got 2 actors, and you've got people behind the stages, and oh my God, all of a sudden your ratio of people running the show to just one audience is a lot. So as Whitten mentioned earlier, invisible avatars came into the picture. So now we've got 9 alters that can come in, and they actually have their own track. They're invisible, they don't speak, but they see these memory orbs that Alex doesn't see in the space. They get to protect Alex from the scary dark shadow. This is actually a view from the Ultra's point of view, and you can see the glowing orb. They would trigger that with their controller to make the pretty ball around Alex to help protect them. But if you get too many in there, too many avatars in there, it can start dropping frame rates. So we do still have to limit the audience.
And the invisibility helps to curb that, and we can get more of them in. With Welcome to Respite, that was one of the just the happy accidents that kind of lined up for us, is that part of what we're dealing with is dissociative identity disorder. So we're dealing with the fractured personality of someone's mind. So we were able to, of this young person's mind, make the audience aspects of their subconscious and make them invisible. So it helps us to be able to get more people, audience members in. We always deal with, we get questions about scalability and all that. And that's an issue that sort of in general in the XR VR world is sort of, people are working on that right now, how to get large amounts of people in a single instance without bogging down the world and shutting it down.
Although even with websites these days, sometimes they just get overwhelmed.
Right. And one of our answers to that is, well, with the types of intimate theater that we produce, we don't necessarily want thousands of people in an instance anyway. It's not that type of show. So we're always working on trying to find that balance. All right.
As mentioned,
yes,
in real life production, this is the house it was in. But in VR, look at that. We can do what we want. We can make the house whatever we want, whatever the director wants, whatever socioeconomic class they want, where all of those things. Now here's the house interior. And it's lovely, but we don't even have to follow the laws of physics. As we mentioned in the video, we have a starlight projector in real life, but in VR, we can make walls fall away and have that little intimate moment with dad.
Yeah, so there's the scene up in the attic where the dad shows off the new starlight projector to Alex, and they have this scene that plays out. And while the scene is playing out, what we can now do, because we're in VR, is the walls slowly fade away, and you realize eventually that you're floating in space now with the cosmos rotating around you as the scene plays out. And then at the end of the scene, when we need to bring it back to their reality, mom breaks that moment and the walls snap back, and suddenly we're in the attic again. We can't do that obviously in real life, or we can't afford to do that.
Well, and even in real life, you're sort of bound by, as you said, the laws of physics. So as you said earlier, we can take the best parts of video games and film and bring them into the theater world with VR theater. So we can actually have those magical, imaginative moments where you feel like you're literally floating in space, and then make it seem as if reality has come back in.
I actually got to see this show in real life because I was the voice of the shadow, so I wanted to see how it came out. And I was sitting in Silver Lake, being Alex, and mom comes up to me, and she, she's like the mom you never had but wish you did, for me anyway. Like, it was like, I mean, my mom's great, she's lovely and fine, but there's just this whole other like different mom that was loving and fabulous and wonderful. And I was just like, I felt like I was 7 again, and it was just this crazy magical moment, and I felt so touched. And I wanted to bring that into VR, which is why I approached Lindsay Scoggin and said, "Hey, Lindsay, you want to do this?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Hey, honey, what do you think of this?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then we're like, "Hey, team, what do you think of this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And so off we went. But look, in VR, we can do that same moment. But now you're 7. You're the size of 7.
Right, because we can actually make your avatar smaller, which we can't do that in real life.
I'm gonna try to explain this very briefly, and it's going to be ineloquent, and I apologize for that. But there's something that we discovered applies to the work that we do called the Proteus effect, which has been studied since the early 2000s. But it's based on the Greek god Proteus, who's known as an ocean-dwelling god, known as a shapeshifter to evade capture by other gods. And during these studies, what was discovered is that people's online digital personas change based on the avatars that they don, based on the audiences and the collective understanding of how one would behave based on what they are. So, for example, if in our case, for Welcome to Respite, the hero is a 7-year-old kid, and we all kind of understand, there's an understanding how people behave towards a 7-year-old kid. So the person that becomes that 7-year-old avatar subconsciously understands that now everybody's going to treat me like a 7-year-old kid. They revert to their 7-year-old self very easily. And then to Witten's point, now we get to play with physics too. So when you become that 7-year-old kid, the world around you scales to that. So the tables are higher. You see the picture of mom here. Mom and dad are bigger. And when they come in to hug you, it's a real experience. This was something that we didn't realize was so powerful.
Because it's not just how you relate to the world as your digital self, that the Proteus effect explores. You said, Steve, it's how other people relate to you as well. And you see that in video games and in the VR space. People, react and play games differently when they're playing differently gendered or aliens or whatever in a video game even.
So your body remembers what it's like to be that size. And what we can't do is like lay Alex down in a bed in VR. That just doesn't work. But you work with what you can and what you can't do. And so I'm going to do a little magic here and pivot over to our other show, which is Gumball Dreams. I'm going to play this video for you, which is
This is a completely different thing.
So I assume you could hear that. Give me a thumbs up. Did you hear that? Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to the virtual lobby of the award-winning immersive theatrical production Gumball Dreams.
A live, scripted, immersive, and interactive play that takes place entirely in virtual reality. Now, the show was built around a previously existing video game called Gumball Lounge that was built in VR chat. And we took it and turned it into a theatrical production that is accessible from all over the world on Quest and PC VR.
Here, our audiences are greeted by Cardiff, performed by a live actor performing from their home, anywhere from Bangkok to Los Angeles. And they will also play Onyx, our ancient alien, during the show.
In Gumball Dreams, our free audience members are brought to the climax of a cosmic journey where they find themselves reborn as their chosen Shalmari, the same race as our primary character, Onyx. Onyx has reached the end of their existence in this universe and needs your help to transcend to the next plane of reality.
As part of our user design, it is Cardiff's job to not only entertain, but also train our audience on how to interact with the puzzles they will encounter during the show, and make sure their menu settings are correct before changing them into a unique avatar representing an alien race. The audience portrays a younger version of the Shalmari, while Onyx has differentiating features hinting at a much older being.
Gumball Dreams is a one-actor show, and we have 9 actors trained to take on the role, which also includes the arduous task of running the show cues as a stage manager would. Because Onyx is an alien, they don't need to adhere to any stereotypical character guidelines. We have both male and female actors who range from their 30s all the way to their 70s. What we look for in our actors is empathy, intuition, and the ability to improvise, because at the heart of our show is a one-on-one encounter with only one audience member, and they get to have a personal conversation with Onyx. The other 2 audience members are given a mission to complete a puzzle and bring back a power source to Onyx, allowing for a separate user experience.
Then Onyx takes them on a spectacular journey of discovery before experiencing their own transition into the beyond, which is breathtaking.
Things that they see are quite simply out of this world. It's a liminal space in between the psychedelic, in between the real and the unreal, the fantastic and the mundane, the simple little things in life that can make us feel happy, can make us feel sad, alongside the cosmic, the impossible, outrageous, and the simply incomprehensible. This is Gumball Dreams.
So yeah, that's the next show that we did, and that wasn't planned, right? So Gumball Dreams was not supposed to be the next show. It was supposed to be the second chapter of Welcome to Respite, but then Lindsay got pregnant, so we're now doing Gumball Dreams. So this is the poster and some of the imagery, and it was based on the Club Gumball and Gumball Lounge smashed together.
Christopher Lane Davis, he created during the pandemic a couple of worlds. One of them was Club Gumball, which is only a tethered world. You can only get to it if you're tethered to a PC. Gumball Lounge was a very similar world that is Quest accessible.
Yes, and we wanted to experiment with doing a one-person show. So we did, I wrote the first draft. I took it to, Christopher, and I said, what do you think? He loved it. We worked together, and then he made the world to reflect. And so then that's kind of how that all evolution of that process went. So our one actor is playing Cardiff, who greets the audience, and they're also playing Onyx. And as Steve was mentioning earlier, we do work sort of at the intersection of gaming, film, and theater. We've got the interactivity of gaming, we've got the cinematic qualities of filmmaking, and we've got the live abilities of theater. Storytelling's kind of been amongst us forever, right? We're creatures of stories, right? We've been doing that since the beginning of time. We've been putting stories on the walls of caves all the way up to what we're doing now. It's how we define ourselves, our world, our history. It's how we make sense of it oftentimes. So we are storytellers at the very basic sense of the word. Gaming is often overlooked as the absolutely biggest moneymaker forever and ever, amen.
Dominates.
Over movies and music by far, but we kind of forget about this. But theater's been around in VR since VR started. People have been doing it since they first started getting in headsets. But now it's much easier to do it. So that's kind of how it happened. People just started doing it and it got easier, and then more people started doing it, and now we're doing it. And so it's an exciting place to be. And maybe someday we'll have our own version of like the Tonys or Oscars.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Right?
We can save theater.
Yes, hopefully we can save theater. So I wanted just to go back a little bit to the underpresents and just about how the pandemic allowed actors to continue to perform in VR during the pandemic. And we were talking earlier about, intimacy and connection in VR and the hugging that would happen in the underpresents. Here's some examples of the hugs that we would get, right? And as we talked about, the caressing of a child's face in VR absolutely holds true to VR. Like it does translate.
The physical reactions, people still have those, right? Because our body, and psychologists have talked about this, that just by doing something physical, like by standing, with your arms akimbo or something like that, gives you a feeling of strength. If you do that before an interview, if you're feeling bad and you just make yourself smile or laugh, your body and your mind will start to feel better. These physical movements have an emotional reaction, and that holds true, as Deirdre's saying, in VR chat, whether it's between a performer and an audience member or two audience members. There was a show of Gumball Dreams when I was presenting it at the Denver Film Festival where the audience members got really into the high five, and they were just high-fiving all over the place. And I was watching from the outside, and it was just people in chairs going, but they were having the best time, right? Because they were still getting that physical feedback from the gesture.
And somebody was asking about, like, does Gumball Dreams fit into sort of the role-playing game genre? I would say sort of like kinda, maybe a little bit on the side, because in role-playing games you're often given a role and each person has a role. It's almost more like, you're in a role, and then there's others there who already know the role, right?
Sort of. I like to think of it as like immersive theater it's in a way it's almost role playing, because the audience takes on a role. But
because we have the structure of the actors around with their storytelling of the show, and that's unfolding around you, it's different than a role-playing game in which there's a dungeon master who's kind of telling you what the story is, and then you kind of make it's more improv-y, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's
there's elements of all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then other people are wanting to know of, like, the hugs in the underpresents were often not prompted at all. They were just what we did when we greeted somebody, or in a moment of sympathy.
In the underpresents, no, I didn't get to participate, but the audience couldn't speak. They could only speak through hand gestures and movements like that. And throughout this process of this game that people got to perform in and interact with the characters, they developed kind of a shorthand, did they not? And a language just through gestures, and hugging, of course, was part of that.
Yeah, for our shows, we usually do have moments when we want to hug or what have you. But Whitten, you were saying?
Oh, I was going to say, and we weren't the first. I mean, Tender Claws wasn't the first company to experiment with having participants. You had Journey and a few other games where the idea was that without speech, people could communicate in other ways and would figure that out. And that was certainly true in the Underpresents. And it became actually quite an important part of it because, Steve, as you said, like people found other ways to communicate. There was the introduction of the use of hats and accessories, and people would start self-identifying by what hat and accessory they were carrying. So if you saw someone with the same hat and the same accessory repeatedly, you would know it was the same person because, of course, you couldn't see their ID, their screen name on there. Someone is asking about the character design, and I think using Welcome to Respite is a really good place to do that, where we really had to figure out the driving factor there was trying to figure out an avatar that didn't come off as one gender or another, so that any audience member would feel comfortable moving into that role. As you saw in the film earlier, there's a moment where the audience member gets to choose their own pronouns, so we as the actors know how to refer to them. So I think a lot of thought goes into how we want the audience to feel represented in this world. The same thing with the Gumball Dreams. Those three colors, red, green, and blue, were already in the world, correct, Deirdre?
Yes, that's right.
So if you look, Onyx has skin that has all of those colors, and each audience is one of those colors. But of course, with Aliens, we didn't have to worry as much about racial or gender representation, which was made things a little bit easier versus in Respite, where that was definitely a concern.
So the role of Alex, we have in the video, you could see the little blocks that were representational of different ethnicities as well. And the goal of what we're trying to do is we have a global audience now, and we are, we're trying to be sensitive to these. We're telling human stories, no matter who we are, where we're at, we experience the same things. And it's our goal to make our work as accessible to everybody as much as possible.
And so we're going to talk a little bit about avatars, since we're talking about avatars. A lot of people think that you have to have super high fidelity avatars to make connection. Yeah, we don't, and you don't, right? In the Underpresents, they didn't even have eyes, and then you still made connection. It's a beautiful thing. And there's like this feeling of being seen in VR, maybe because you're behind a literal mask and you're anonymous, but there's this beautiful feeling of feeling seen. Now there's this thing called like super stimuli, where it's sort of like you have this response to things that are heightened or connect to us on a visceral level. So colors and shapes and
sizes.
So like it maybe because the avatars are more cartoony, that they're brighter and they're shinier. Maybe that's why it elicits such a strong response to us. We talked a little bit about why. Yes, Whit?
Oh, I mean, I think that's true. I think also, like you said, a lot of focus is being put on high fidelity to realism, right? Because we're trying to make the digital space like the real world, as if we're trying to trick people. But is that what people really want from the digital space, right? I mean, honestly, I want to be able to fly around and have big wings and be rainbow colors.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to look like me in the virtual space. And so I think I understand the drive to see how far we can push virtual reality, to see if we can make it very close to real life. But at the same time, I think and this is just an opinion, I think it's a mistake to only focus on that, because as we've seen, we don't need that for people to form to have emotional experiences or to form attachments within the virtual world. I mean, that's been going on forever. People fall in love and get married on World of Warcraft, right? Like, we don't need it to be the same as our real lives. In fact, maybe that's actually a mistake.
So we use VR chat because of the networking and all the reasons that we use the avatar system. But there's other people doing other cool things in VR too. Jason Moore does alien rescue in Neos. The Outspace sad as it may be.
Sad.
Used to have Neverland
Rest in
and
peace.
the Winter Lights with the Kashanis. They are lovely, but Alt Space sadly is going away. Horizons does, Vert, and Rec Room has the Orange Bucket Theater Troupe, and Brendan Bradley works in the Reb 3 space. Now maybe someday we'll have our own app building metaverse theater thing, but we don't currently, so we just continue on. And we deal with headaches like time zones. So I like World Time Buddy because it shows me everything, but do time zones when you're dealing with daylight savings time, and oh my god, it'll do your head in.
Because not only are our audience members in different time zones, so are our actors.
Yes, that's correct.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
correct. So you've got
Our,
shows
our
happening
actors are around the world too.
in London, but they are on daylight savings time, and in the US we are not. And so you're like, oh my God, no. And here's the gift that keeps on giving to me with tech. It will teach you that perfection is unacceptable and it's a fear-based goal. Get rid of perfection and just trust yourself to pivot when you need to, because that's the important thing.
We have a saying that we learned many years ago and is very valid, that I'll clean it up. Yeah, I say it differently when I'm not in public, but AV will always mess you up.
Yes.
Always. Tech is always going to be buggy and have problems. And for people like us that care about trying to make things as perfect as possible, it dissuades us of that very quickly.
Yes, that's right. So trust yourself to the pivot. That's where you can give yourself the gift of, and this is why you're like, why do we do this? Well, because film and TV has a bunch of people doing it and already, and it's so hard to like break into that unless you know somebody or you get lucky. So pioneer doors open, but just FYI, not a lot of money there. Just not a lot of money when you're first starting in this space. So that's what you give up. You get some visibility, but you don't get a lot of money. All right. I'm gonna talk a little bit about why we do this. I'm going to use two quick examples from Venice, the Venice Film Festival, and I'm going to have Steve tell these stories rather speedily.
So very quickly, we were lucky to be at the Venice Film Festival with Gumball Dreams for the second year in a row, this last year with Gumball Dreams. And we shared the space, the performance space in real life with a wonderful Japanese production called Type Man. And the reason why we shared it is because both of our shows were produced on VR chat, present on VR chat, and both of our shows included 3 audience members and 1 performer. So they did their shows in the morning, we did our shows in the afternoon and evening, and it worked out well. Lovely people. The Type Man folks are just lovely, wonderful people. We watched each other's shows. And one morning I got to the island where the VR wing of the festival was taking place, and I was walking through, and we all run into each other, the creators, and the Type Man director and his producer walked past, and I was saying, hey, good to see you guys. How lovely to to have seen your show, and it's wonderful and all that. And he said, he stopped me and he said, you guys did Welcome to Respite, didn't you? And we said, yeah. I said, yeah, we did. And he said, I saw it 2 times and it made me want to do Type Man in VR chat. And so to know that we influenced somebody and inspired them to do that, really, we're just honored at being able to do things like that. And briefly, the other story about connectivity was that I experienced during one of our shows. We had our 3 audience members come in for the show, got them set up. One was a young lady who spoke with an accent that I didn't know where she was from. But during the show, because I listened to the actor and the communication in an earpiece, during the one-on-one discussion with the main character of Gumball Dreams and this audience member, I heard her ask where this young lady was from, and I heard her say Russia. And I thought, wow, this is going to be interesting. And they went off and had this discussion that I didn't hear. And then after the show, we're sort of the offboarding experience as part of, we bring people delicately back to the real world, welcome them back. And I went into this room where this young woman was sitting on a chair and she was crying, just bawling her head off. And I said, how are you? And how are you doing? And she said, I'm sorry, I don't generally do this, but I didn't realize how profound this work was and this experience. She said, I'm from Russia, from Moscow. And those of us that have VR headsets, this is the only escape from everything that's going on that we have. And she said, I want to do what you guys do. And I didn't realize it was this powerful. So something shifted in her. And we've had experiences like that. And that reminds us that as storytellers, through art, we heal. And it's a way for us to connect overseas, and despite our ethnicities and our languages, we're all the same, and it's why we do it, and we're so grateful to be doing this.
And to wrap up, I will give
How can
you,
we keep doing this?
yeah, I will answer the question everybody's asking. Well, how do you fund this? I don't know. I don't
I'm
know.
working on that.
So you can, I have found that, we've sort of just done this and put it up there, and it has been a lot less resource heavy as our previous things. But for options, you could try applying to Oculus Connect or the Unreal Fellowship or VR publishing hardware companies and see if they will help fund something that you have with the pitch deck and all that. You can apply for a government program if you have connections to outside the US, then you're probably going to have more luck because there's no funding for the arts here. Unreal, Epic, Unity for Humanity, they all have grant programs. And then there's, of course, crowdfunding, things like that. So how do you fund it? It's like Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah, the money will come.
Mystery.
How? Yeah, that's right.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. So, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Do we have any time for questions? I know
Yes, we have 10 minutes for questions.
There we go.
Actually,
All right, we answered
9
some,
minutes for
but-
questions.
But
Yes.
feel free, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Deirdre, Stephen, and Whitney. I think we can open the floor for questions. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions.
Maybe do the raise the hand little emoji so we can know who to
Yes.
talk to.
I'm going to drop some socials in the thing
Thank you,
for
Deirdre.
Ferryman and stuff. But yeah, as you can see, we can talk, right?
Yeah. I think I can start with one question. Yeah, so I think it's a question for all three of you, like how do you envision the future of live performance in VR? Is there anything that you are particularly interested in that you want to try in the future?
Yeah.
All of it. Yeah, go ahead, Whitten.
Deirdre and I have been working on a script for a more sort of full-scale Shakespearean production, which I'm really excited about, and I hope we get to do, where it's a lot more involved and requires quite a bit of sort of linguistic facility from our actors as well. And the idea of it being a much more grand scale thing that we could work with is very exciting to me. I think Deirdre in the talk touched on the hope that one day we can have our own virtual building of sorts, like a theater building, like the Amundsen Center or something, where it would be its own app that we could bring in other theater companies, right? We could have a black box experimental area in it that we could help people put up shows in that. We could put on these grand scale main stage performances. I think that would be really incredible and not out of the realm of possibility, certainly. The other thing for us is being a company that is able to approach larger entertainment companies and help them realize their goals within a virtual space. Immersive pop-ups are really popular right now.
Yeah.
And why not do those in a digital space, right? Why not have an immersive pop-up that's populated with live actors that you can show to people all over the world? So that's also one of the things we're pursuing.
I'm excited about how technology is advancing so quickly, and the depths of storytelling that we'll be able to tell very shortly in the future, with haptics now being experimented with, full body tracking, which we're going to get to experiment with a little bit more. There's still buggy issues with all of it, latency issues. Once some of those are solved, we'll be able to
Musicals.
have live musicals, duets back and forth. All of that is going to get better. Face tracking will be more streamlined to where you be able to have a loving conversation with somebody and it won't look like you're screaming insanely at them. I mean, there's everything will get better. So I'm excited about those things personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, very exciting.
More people into the space, because the more people come into the space, the more audience we'll have, and then the audience will seek out other shows. And I think that would be lovely to do, to grow the audience in the space as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a lot of information. I know that there were points in time where I was like, oh my God, look at the time. Oh my God. And I'm like I have all these pages to get through. And so I know we rushed a bit over Gumball Dreams and how that all came together. And then we just popped right into storytelling and all that. So it's a bit of a lot of info all at once, but I hope that you enjoyed it. Would you say there's a scope in further gamifying these experiences? Sure, absolutely. To one extent or another,
It can all be done.
Yeah, like we're all still experimenting with this, and
I think we want,
there is a gaming element in that, the one that the people in the one audience stays with Onyx to do and the one-on-one. The other two audiences, they go to solve a puzzle. So there is a gaming aspect to that show already.
Well, and I think immersive theater and what we do sort of strives to tread the boundary between games and theater. And I think there's certainly other projects that go further towards one area or another, where it's more about gaming. In the production of Find Willie that we have coming up, there's a game element where you're trying to capture things throughout the story. So that kind of is a persistent thing. But then we also want the emotional and personal connection, the intimacy that we give our audience members. So we don't want it to go too far into game where it just becomes that, right? We want it to kind of be right in between. That's what we've discovered is our sweet spot. More, I would say for us, more on the theatrical intimate experience side, probably.
There was a just posted in our company Discord some technician, somebody who does code and stuff like that, came through Gumball Dreams and was sort of completely flabbergasted by what they experienced. That it's like kind of like a game, but it was like real actors and it was intimate and it blew me away. I didn't know that this existed. So it's sort of we've entered the gaming world, but we're using it for our own devices, and it can be it can be. The
word has been uttered.
Yes.
Yeah. So somebody was speaking about Chat GPT. So yeah, sure.
Stuff.
Let's experiment with all of it. I do not think that actors are going to be replaced by Chat GPT because they don't understand this fundamental issue. Why is a mouse when it spins?
Because a vest has no sleeves.
Exactly. And they can't understand humor. It's never going to get there, right? It's just not. But to use it as part of the show, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Or as a potential script writing tool, maybe.
Yeah.
I think the other thing for us is, yes, live actors, human connection is a priority for us. And I think it's an important part of it will be an important part of the virtual space going forward. I mean, even at the nascent beginnings of the internet, what was the thing that people really cottoned on to? Well, let's see, it was two things. It was chat rooms, so that has human connection, and porn, also human connection, right? Those two things were the things that made people really see the potential of the internet and of a global connection. Now, that may or may not be the same thing in the virtual worlds right now. But again, I think it would be a mistake to count out live interaction. And actually, funnily enough, we often get asked if it's live. People don't believe us. They think that AI is way further advanced than it actually is. We will tell people, this is live theater. It's all in real time. Everything is you're experiencing is not pre-recorded. And then they'll come out of the show and they'll go, so was that live? And that,
That was really part of the magical discovery of what these guys did with the Under Presents, because going back to the gaming question, the Under Presents is a game. It was released as a game, but then they created it to where they could allow live actors to replace those NPCs. So and didn't say anything to the audience that purchased the game. So people thought that they were interacting with these NPCs, but then it got to be too sophisticated. Then word got out. It was like, oh my God, this is live actors.
Yeah.
And it just became this, really kind of took on a life of its own.
It's 8:40, guys.
sorry.
We talked the whole time. We can we'll talk more.
Yeah, I
Yes,
bet.
and
Happy
please,
to talk
Here,
more.
long as y'all want.
and also
Or can
please feel free
stand
to
it.
reach out to us.
Yeah.
I think we posted all the social media handles for everybody and websites and things. So please feel free to reach out if you want to ask any of us, Deirdre, Steve, or myself, any questions about upcoming projects, or you have an idea for a project. We collaborate with other creators. I know we're in talks with a couple of world creators to do something similar to Gumball Dreams with their worlds. We're working with another IRL immersive theater company, Spy Brunch, on their production, which was an IRL production called The Pod, on bringing that into the virtual space. Find Willie, the project I'm directing, is a collaboration with Gyoe, a Korean company that we actually licensed Welcome to Respite to, and they performed it in Korean with Korean actors. We adapted it for them. So we love doing collaborations, so please come and talk to us, or if you want us to come and talk, if you, for a company or another school thing, we're always happy to do that. We can even come teach,
Yeah,
which I know at the University of Rochester.
and one of our Ferryman Collective co-founders, Brain Roy, started an organization called XR Live, which it's not really a festival, but it's bringing together other immersive creators like ourselves into one place where you can experience more of that work too. And Deirdre's putting that in the chat right now.
There you go.
I wasn't sure if you were doing it
Okay.
or not.
Somebody is. There it is. So feel free to stay in touch. Thank you so much for having us, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Deirdre, Stephen, and Witten for joining us today. Yeah, we are very grateful to learn about your work.
We had a great time, I think.
Yeah, and also please check out the rest of Voices of XR speaker series. Our next speaker is Sam Hessenel next Monday, and that link will also be in the chat. So thank you all and have a great, wonderful day.
Thanks. Be well, everyone.
Thank you guys so much. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to
Well,
meet
this
you.
was fun. Hey, Emily.
Hi, Emily.
Thank you for having us. This was lovely. I hope I hope it was. Oh Lordy. Oh Lordy.
There's
Oh,
Oh
cat time.
Lordy.